and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Rangers. Thank you for joining us this Monday evening. I'm Kyle McLean, your host as always, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Ross Chalmers. First of all, Ross, how are you today? I hear you've been stocking up on the limp sips before you joined.
Yeah, I've passed a late fitness test for this one, Kyle. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm a little bit huskier than usual, so I apologise to all the viewers and the listeners for this one. I might sound a little bit off, but yeah, I'm very good. What a result for Rangers over the weekend. Delighted, memorable Old Firm win. So I could not miss this one. I've refused to miss this one. So yeah, apologies in advance for the way I sound, but look, we'll get past that. There's lots to get into and speak about.
Listen, it's that old excuse at this time of year, isn't it? After you've been out at New Year's and partying and especially celebrating a big win, I've got that flu that everybody's got going about, isn't it? So we all know really what's happening there, Ross. But you'll be grand.
No comment.
Listen, obviously we're here to talk about Rangers' 3-1 victory over Celtic at the weekend, where Rangers started the game well for the first 5 minutes, and then, being completely honest, for the rest of that first half, it just felt like the Rangers goal was under siege, where Rangers were exposed a number of times. I'm sure we'll touch on a wee bit about why that first half was so poor. But Danny Röhl, unlike other managers we've seen so far this season at Rangers, at other clubs, he's not a guy that's wedded to his philosophy. He came out, he made personnel changes, he made tactical changes, and then it resulted in Rangers ultimately winning the game 3-1. I mean, I'm sure we'll come on to it, Ross, but it was like watching a completely different team step out into that second half. It was two really, really good goals from Youssef Chermiti and a really, really good goal from Mikey as well. You know, obviously taking Asgard off, putting Diomande on helped, but for me, it was the big changes in the attitude of the players tactically, you know, switching up a bit, going from man to man in the first half to a flat three in the middle of the pitch just allowed, the defence to do the defending and the attackers to do the attacking, as silly as that seems. But yeah, it made such a difference. And again, something we touch on, a habit that Rangers are getting into at the minute, and that is scoring goals at really, really important times in a game, just to kill momentum. And when other teams are think they've got a wee chance back, just sort of killing that off. So, but yeah, I've tried to sum up a bit there in brief, a bit all over the place, like I'm sure a bit of this podcast will be, in terms of talking about everything that went on yesterday. But what did you make of that game of football, Ross?
Yeah, you've summarised it well. I think after that first half, I was surprised the way the game ended up turning out. I think we won't spend too much time on it, but I thought Rangers were very poor in that first half, performance-wise. And I think if we're being fair, Celtic probably deserved to go in more than one goal to their advantage. I think we spoke about this earlier. I think that's what maybe gave me encouragement going in at half-time, because we've all played football at any level. And if you're playing against an opponent that have just got the better of you, but you go in at half-time, you're only one goal down, that really turns out to be a positive at the end of the day, because you sit and go, look, if we can change our performance levels here, if we can make a couple of changes, whether that's personnel, tactical, we can get back in this game. And I think that's what's really happened yesterday. I think Danny Röhl's come in at half-time, he's looked at it, he's felt this isn't working, and he's changed it. And Rangers have went on, they've kicked on, they've scored 3 fantastic goals, and it becomes a memorable day. It's a remarkable turnaround. Like I said, didn't expect after that first half performance. And I think I can't really comprehend where Rangers are this season in terms of the start of the season to where we are now. And I felt like that yesterday was a statement. That was a statement from Rangers to say that, okay, this might have been a poor season up until this point, but under Danny Röhl, we have started to claw back those points. And we've went to Parkhead yesterday with the intention of winning that game. You know, we've not went in at half-time and felt sorry for ourselves. 1-0 down, they've got the better of it. We've came out, we've played in that second half, one of the best I've seen us all season, and we've grabbed 3 points. It really puts us back in this title race. And I know that people are reluctant to talk about Rangers being in a title race, but you can't get away from it. Rangers are in a title race now. They are 6 points off the top. They are back level with Celtic, and it's a really incredible result. And I think after that first half, many didn't expect it. I think going into the game, and we spoke about this the other night on the podcast, we were quietly confident of a result. And it's quite funny looking back after that first half, you go, oh, what were we talking about in that podcast the other night? But in the second half, they've proved us wrong. And I'm delighted they have. And there's some real memorable performances in there from a couple of individuals we'll come to. But I think overall, I'm absolutely delighted. I think everyone was the same yesterday after that game to go to Parkhead on the New Year's Day game and come away with 3 points. It's wonderful. And I'm delighted for Danny Röhl and the players. And this should now really give them belief that they can go and make this a successful season. There's a lot of those players that have faced a lot of criticism at the start of this season, deservedly so. But they now have proved that there's some good players in there. And if we can add to that in January, there's no doubt about it that Rangers can finish this season with success. That is there now. That's the carrot. They've got to go and they've got to grab it.
Well, that's it exactly. The phrase that you said there, and Röhl said it after the game, it was a statement win. It just something that's not happened for Rangers in a few years now. It really, really feels like there's a bit of momentum behind this team, and it now feels like managers love things to be able to point out to their players and go, see this situation, you guys did this before. You have the belief to do it again, because that was, I mean, I would take nothing away from it. I mean, he did make clever tactical changes in that second half, but it was what managers have failed to do a lot in the past is actually instill the belief in the players, and then for the players to then go out and believe in themselves and go out and do it in the pitch. And that was what we saw in that second half. But we've
just
got
on that, Kyle, just before we move on, just belief from the players' perspective in the manager, but also as a support, because let's be honest, there were plenty at halftime over the weekend saying that maybe Danny Röhl isn't up to it. This is another big game that he isn't delivering in. And then he turns it around at halftime and Rangers go on and get the 3 points at Parkhead. I think as a support, that was massive for us. That now, I think you can feel the belief starting to build within this support that if you give this manager the right tools, he can deliver success for us. I think you're right. I totally agree with you. The players now must be looking at Danny Röhl with the changes he's made, that they have belief in this manager and what they're trying to do. And I think, to be honest with you, plenty of them would have said that before that game over the weekend. But I think now as a support, we can now sit there and go, well, Danny Röhl's done it in a big game. He's delivered in a big game where Rangers had to go and win. So now we can get behind this. We can believe in what we're doing here. So I think from both perspectives, that was really, really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Do you know why? Because tomorrow night against Aberdeen, I think might be one of the first times that I'm actually looking forward to going to Ibrox this year and supporting the team. I mean, I always look forward to a game against Aberdeen in particular. But yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to tomorrow night. But listen, we've got to talk about it, putting it in context. I just want to very, very briefly touch on that first half performance. I think you and I had a bit of discussion about what we thought the lineup would be. I think we got it pretty much spot on. I think we said it'd be a toss-up between Asgard and Diomande. But the first 5 minutes, Rangers did everything that I would want Rangers to do well. They started in the front foot, started with a high press, but after that, it kind of capitulated. And listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it here, Ross. In that first half, Rangers, the weaknesses in particular, were exposed quite a few times. And I don't know, it just seemed to be, I did really get the fear in that first half, because it seemed to be attack down Rangers' left-hand side. The ball got flashed across the box, and then the whole back line just seemed to get spooked, and it just kind of spread throughout everybody. I know Butland's had a bit of criticism for the first goal, but he made some huge saves in that first half, Ross. What was your overall thoughts in the first half, and why did it kind of collapse for Rangers so much in that first half?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we started okay, and I think it showed the intention that we were willing to go man for man with Celtic and press them high up the park. And it seems strange to say, but I think that Taylor Asgard booking was a bit of a turning point, because Asgard was kind of one of the ones that was leading that press centrally. I think he was tasked again with trying to stop Callum McGregor, and he couldn't really get involved in the game after that. Now, we might touch on Taylor Asgard in terms of individual performance later on in the podcast, but I just felt that was the bit of the turning point. Look, we spoke about this the other day. It doesn't really matter what kind of form Celtic are in going into these games, and especially at Parkhead. If you don't show up in these games, you're going to take a bit of a tanking, and that goes for both sides of the Old Firm. You've got to deliver in these games. You've got to match the intensity of that game, understand the environment you've in, and execute. And I think in that first half we weren't able to do it. I thought the press, okay, was maybe there, but I thought we were way too passive. I thought Rangers were getting close to the ball, but not close enough. They weren't winning second balls. They were losing the majority of their duels. And really, sometimes that's what football comes down to. It comes down to second balls and duels and how many times you can make it, get out of that with the ball. I thought Celtic done that really well in the first half, and I really thought we didn't. The midfield for me in these type of games is always the most important aspect of the park. It always is. I think it always will be. And I thought McGregor and Engels were absolutely running over the top of us. And I thought Barron and Raskin couldn't get in the game. It was kind of the ball was constantly being played through them. And Asgard, who was the kind of ahead of them, just wasn't impactful enough. He wasn't doing enough. And I think like I said, in any of these games, you need the midfield to kind of be that aspect of the team that leads the rest. And I just thought we lost those battles. So, like you said, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it was such a memorable result. But I think that will be a learning point for Danny Röhl, and a bit of a learning curve that in these games, you need to be solid in the middle of the park. Like, if you give up that space to the likes of a Callum McGregor, and I know Arnie Engels has struggled at times since his move, but they are good footballers. I think we spoke about that the other night. If you give them space and time, they're going to dominate the ball and they're going to punish you. And I think you've seen that at several points. Credit to the manager. He changed it at halftime, and we've seen the response. And I thought the midfield, again, that second half for us was really the reason why we turned that game around. And we'll come on to maybe Diamande's influence in that. But overall, I think that's where Rangers went wrong. They were too passive. Celtic are always going to come into this game with intensity and be motivated. It doesn't matter the form they've been on, especially at Parkhead. Their support are going to get behind them. They're going to push them on. And I didn't think we'd done enough to match that. So I'm happy that we can now sit and analyse that first half and say it doesn't really matter anymore. But I think that's a learning curve for Danny Röhl going forward, that you're going to have to pack your team at times with players that understand this sort of environment in this game and can match the intensity, because I just thought it wasn't there in that first half.
Yeah, I think Thelo Asgard is a player you can look at. There's a bit of criticism for him, whether he has the mentality or not to play in these games. He just looked like he took a bit too long on the ball at times. But yeah, I think the yellow card did hamper his decision making at times. He wasn't going in for the tackles, but yeah, he took too long, and he wanted too much time in a game that you're never going to get the amount of time that he was expecting on it. But for
do you
me,
think he's maybe a little bit spooked by that red card in the last game as well, where he's picked up that booking and he's went, I can't afford to get sent off 2 games in a row in an Old Firm fixture. I can't afford that. And I think that's maybe played on him psychologically. And by the way, that's not me defending his performance. I thought Thelo Asgard was poor, especially for their goal. I mean, his attempt to stop Yang is a disgrace, really. Let's be honest. But do you think that maybe comes into it psychologically, or he's panicked, basically, and I can't be on the end of another red card in a game like this?
Yeah, I think that certainly comes into it, but just on the first half, where it just wasn't quite working for me was the man-to-man defense. I mean, see where you saw Manny Fernandes tracking Engels back, and was on there like 20 yards into their half at times. But yeah, like as you said, I'm really, really glad we've got a manager that can recognise that it needs changed. I mean, that's what I was saying to the guys that I was sitting about watching the game with it. I mean, was the first half did worry me, but you also kind of, and this manager's earned it. You knew he was going to change it, and you almost knew that it wasn't going to be quite as, regardless of what happened, it wasn't going to be as bad as the first half. And you know that Danny Röhl's got enough tactical nous to go and make those tweaks in there. But we've already alluded to it earlier on in the pod. Rangers came out almost from the get-go, and it was like an entirely different team. They just seemed to be more aggressive off the ball. Winning second balls was really, really key, something that we did not do enough of that first half, because like I said, we were just too far apart, too much space in between, and then the ball was just going right over our back line. I think we tried to do it a few times to Celtic, but they were incredible saying this, a bit more organised than us in dealing with that in the first half. But yeah, Röhl coming out took Asgard off. I think the changes I put out on X, I said I would have maybe taken Mikey Moore off as well, because I didn't think up until that point he was having a particularly good game. How wrong I was, and how I'm glad I was wrong on that one. I know Ross was particularly offended by the suggestion of taking Mikey Moore off in a game of football, but yeah, he just put Diomande on, went to a flat 3 in the middle of the pitch, changed rather than going from man to man as well, and it made a huge difference. Ross, what exactly do you think Röhl changed, and how impressed were you with the fact that he can coach a player? He's now at the stage in his Rangers management career where it seems to be he's coaching these players, and they're now going out and executing what he's asking them to do in the pitch.
Well, yeah, I think we spoke about it earlier in the podcast. I do think these players believe in Danny Röhl and what he's trying to implement. And I think we spoke about this before. I think he's kind of simplified things a little bit. And there isn't that real emphasis on possession and, moving the ball around to find the absolute perfect time to play that killer pass, which was kind of Russell Martin's philosophy. I think he's understood that, okay, we're going to build from the back and we're going to go from there. And look, you see this all the time about football. You build confidence from getting results, like you do. Like we know that performance-wise, Rangers haven't been great, and for sustained success and a sustained period of results over the season, we know that Rangers are going to have to continue to improve, because if they don't, they will drop points. But the results are there, and I think that's what Danny Röhl can do, and sit down with his players and say, look, like what we are doing here is working. We've won 9 of the first 12 since I've came in domestically. There is a recipe for success here if we can build upon this. And I think the players are starting to believe in that. And like you referenced earlier, I think that's what gave me confidence watching this game, because I felt you've got a manager there that is willing to change it. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that Rangers are going to find success in the game. They're going to get back into it. But you feel more confident in a manager that is willing to rip things up and say, I've not got this right. We're not in this game enough. I'm going to change it. And that's exactly what he done. So I think the confidence from these players is definitely there. I think there's a lot of support behind this manager now within the players. And I think you need that. We all understand modern football. And look, you can see it across the city with Wilfred Nancy at Celtic. It doesn't seem like those players are really buying into him. I mean, some of the comments coming out before the game yesterday were wild, some of their comments. So I think what we've got there is working. In terms of what he changed tactically, this is probably the moment for us to talk about Mohamed Diomande, because you and I have both been very critical about Diomande on this podcast in the last couple of weeks. And I say this all the time about Mohamed Diomande, and I think this is the thing that frustrates me the most about him. The ability is there. He has just shown that over the weekend. The ability is there. I mean, he has came on and he has changed the trajectory of that game for Rangers. Now, I'm not saying that he came on, he skint 3 players and he set up the winner. Like, that obviously he didn't do that. But what I mean is, what Mohamed Diomande gives you in this game and these type of games is, he's willing to take the ball in any area, right? So he's a midfielder that will just demand the ball regardless of how the game is going, how Rangers are playing. He's like, give me it. I want to take responsibility. So that was the first thing. And I felt that gave us a lot more of a foothold in the game, because you had another midfielder in there, like the type of a Raskin, who's saying, give me it wherever, it doesn't matter. I'm going to hold anyone off. And I will retain possession under pressure. So that was the first thing. The second thing, I think, in terms of Danny Röhl's changes was, it was very Steven Gerrard-esque, wasn't it? Where he's just went, I'm going to flat 3. Like, I'm changing this. I'm going to flat 3. I'm putting Raskin on the right-hand side. I'm going to play Barron centrally. I'll put Diomande in the left. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get control of this game in central areas. And it made a massive, massive difference. So I think credit goes to the manager, because he's recognised that. But also a lot of credit has to go to Diomande and Raskin. I thought the two of them were fantastic in the second half. And again, this comes back to why we have so much frustration with these players. Because the ability is there. There's no doubt about it. My frustration is they don't do it enough. The consistency isn't there. What I want to see from Diomande and Raskin is them dominating games of football like that every single week. Not just in Old Firm fixtures, not just in tough European games. I want to see them do that domestically. I want to see them run all over the top of Motherwells and St Mirrens and Aberdeens and Hibs, because the ability is there to do it. So massive credit to the two midfielders and massive credit to Danny Röhl for recognising that changes had to be made. And I think that's where the success came yesterday. We changed the shape of the midfield. We asked them to do something a little bit different. And the two midfielders who we have relied on for the last couple of years stepped up in the big moment. They did. So all the criticism I've had in recent weeks, and especially from you and I, they responded to it yesterday. And all I want now is for them to kick on, show that level of consistency again that I think they need to show. And Rangers, if the both of them can do that, Rangers will have a much better chance of lifting a trophy at the end of the season.
Yeah, look, that's it exactly. See if that game yesterday wasn't the biggest advert for like momentum in football matches, because you could literally see it from that first half when, like I said, when the shot went across the goals, it totally spooked the whole Rangers team, and you could see Celtic building up and sort of, you could feel the next attack coming. When those changes are made in the second half, it was the momentum just totally changed for Rangers as well, in terms of, if you're on the pitch, to me, Asgard, he was too slow and he kept getting the ball with his back to goal. That is what Diomande is so good at, is taking the ball while he's under pressure with players round about him, and he just opened it right up. He wasn't scared to take the ball off of people. And if you've got a guy like that in your team, other players round about it are looking, going, oh, this is different, because the ball's not getting stuck in the middle of the park here. We're actually progressing going forward. And yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of him and Raskin. They are a very, very good midfield pairing when they are working together. You're right. It's the frustration is that as supporters, we just don't see it enough.
It maybe comes back to the kind of selection from Danny Röhl for that game, and when it comes to Taylor Asgard and Mohamed Diomande. And look, Asgard has struggled. There's no doubt about it, especially in these type of games. Now, he did find a little bit of form before this game, but I think we put in our predicted lineup on the Twitter account, we went for Mohamed Diomande. And a lot of people said he's been rotten lately. But I think we both thought that this type
Shows
of game, it perfectly suits Mohamed Diomande, and he's done it in these games before. And like I've just said in my previous answer, I am sitting here and saying it's not good enough to just do it in these games. And look, Mohamed Diomande, he'll know this himself, right? They're human beings at the end of the day. They'll understand that he'll have to find consistency throughout if he ever is going to get that move that I think he wants. And Raskin's the same. But yeah, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that yesterday. The big thing I wanted to touch on with Diomande was, see, for the third goal for Mikey Moore, it's him that takes the ball and drives inside, which, by the way, I can't believe that Stephen McLean wasn't going to give a foul for it, by the way. He didn't even flag for it. But Kasama picks it up and he plays it through to Mikey Moore. But that comes from Mohamed Diomande, willing to take the ball, willing to drive into space with it. You need these type of players in these games. You need the type of players in these games that are willing to take the ball under pressure. You have to have that. Taylor Asgard, for me, is a player that is comfortable in possession, but wants far too much time in the ball. He wants to take 3, 4, 5 touches and then play his pass. In these games, you don't get the time for that. And I think Mohamed Diomande struggled with that to begin with in these games, to be fair. And maybe that's the way we can look at a Taylor Asgard and think, okay, it might come with time. I think there's lots that will sit and go, it's never going to come with him, and that's fine. My opinion is it's maybe still a little bit early to rule him out completely. But what Mohamed Diomande does in these games is he understands the magnitude of the game, the intensity, the pressure on the ball, and he knows how to retain it. And I always go back to, and we joke about this before, I loved Glenn Kamara at Rangers because he done a very similar job, right? He was perfect for these games, and I think Diomande's very similar. So I'm hoping now Danny Röhl going forward recognises that a Diomande in these type of games is what we need in midfield. Regardless of his form, I think he needs to play these type of games because of the skill set he brings to that midfield.
Yeah, he was really, really good yesterday, and hopefully we see more of it. That's exactly what you need from a guy like Diomande. But yeah, he was brilliant in that game, and he ultimately changed it. But It brings me on nicely to another player that you and I have been very critical of on the podcast. I'll fully hold my hands up and say at Ibrox, I have absolutely slaughtered this guy because I did not think there was a player in there. I just thought it was up there with one of the worst signings that Rangers have ever made. But big Youssef Chermiti, I have never been so happy to have been proven completely wrong in the past two games. I mean, St Mirren, I thought he built his work rate was unbelievable. I don't think when he came off the pitch he was expecting a standing ovation, but the fans really, really got behind him. And he's obviously got a bit of confidence from that yesterday. Okay, first half, like everybody else that was playing yesterday, it wasn't the best performance, but in the second half, it was almost like a completely different player we're seeing. I thought his hold-up play was brilliant. I thought his desire to go and win the ball back was brilliant. I thought his physicality was excellent. I mean, he gave Trusty a torrid time. He gave that full Celtic defence a torrid time. That's exactly what you want from your 6'6" or whatever he is, number 9, to be using his physicality, getting about with it. But more so than that, Ross, he showed some lovely touches in and about it. Was used a lot of time as the what was holding the ball. Imagine that, having a forward and an old firm who the ball goes up to him and it actually sticks to him. It's been so long since we've actually seen this. And he got two brilliant, brilliant goals. I thought the first goal, as you alluded to as well, really nice work from Diomande and Raskin, showing they can do it in both boxes, by the way. Fantastic for Raskin to get to the byline, cut it back. I still don't know. I felt like Neil McCann was doing him a bit of a disservice by calling it a tap-in yesterday. That goal was not a tap-in. He worked really hard, used his body to get in the way. I don't know if he quite flicked it in with his foot or he hit it in with the outside of his boot, but it went in. And the second goal for me epitomised everything that Rangers were not under Russell Martin. Direct, the desire to go and win a ball from a Celtic throw-in and just run at them. And it put the fear into them. Okay, if you're looking at it from a Celtic point of view, the defending was awful, but what a finish, Ross, that was. And Chermiti was, well, it's no secret, he was my man of the match by an absolute mile yesterday.
Yeah, look, I think we've absolutely robbed Everton. I think we've robbed them. I think they should have been asking for 20 million after that yesterday. Of course, I'm just joking. But yeah, maybe Kevin Thelwell didn't get this one wrong. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, look, I completely agree with everything you said. I think we've started to see in recent weeks with Youssef Chermiti a little bit of confidence. I think he had a really good game against St Mirren. And I think there's been a few games before that where he's shown his all-round ability. I think of that game away at Easter Road when Rangers won 1-0. I thought he was actually really good that night as well. And I think a lot of people have been waiting on the goals to come to really give a clear opinion on him. And we spoke about this in the podcast leading up to the game. It was an easy decision for me to play Youssef Chermiti because of what he brings you all round. And the goals haven't been there. And of course, he's grabbed them over the weekend, so I'm delighted for him. But his all-round play has been very good. Like, it genuinely has been in recent weeks. And I think you're completely right to reference, in an Old Firm fixture, it's so important to have someone up front that is a focal point and you can peel off of and he can create chances for others. I thought he'd done that really well yesterday. I think I seen a Twitter post from, I think it was a Rising Stars account yesterday talking about Youssef Chermiti in it, and he gave a real clear picture of how good he was. I think he won the most duels, the most goals. He was man of the match. You know, he had the most fouls committed against him. And I think the most dribbles in the game as well. So it was an all-round complete performance from him. And I think that's what we've all been waiting on. And look, we've said this before. The fee comes into this. If Rangers had signed Youssef Chermiti for 500 grand, a million, even 2 million, I think people would be a lot more understanding of his slow start. It's because of the fee that's been paid, and people aren't willing to give him that time. I think what we can all say now is, clearly when he's first came in, is a guy that's not played a lot of football, and we've maybe been a little bit impatient, and we had to give him a little bit more time. At the same time, there's been plenty of performances where you've looked at him and went, wow, like, I'm not sure there's actually a footballer in there. So I think both sides have been fair. But yeah, I'm just delighted from you, sir. I thought the 2 goals are brilliant. I agree with you as well. Neil McCann's analysis of that is harsh. And I think we spoke about this before. It was a real frustration of mine with Cyril Dessers. And I know Cyril Dessers' goal return was really good. And Chermiti's going to have to do a lot to match that. But the big frustration I had with Cyril Dessers as a striker was he never really got across the front post. And I think as a striker, if someone is getting to the byline, as a striker, get across the front post, because that's where the cutback is likely going to go. Let someone else be the guy that drops to the penalty spot. Let your winger be the guy that drops to the penalty spot. Let your central midfielder be in that area. What I love from Youssef Chermiti was, I'm going to get across the front post and get to this first, and I'm going to have a great job of finishing it. And he done that. The second goal, I'm going to focus on the Rangers aspect because it's such a great finish. The defending from Austin Trusty is abysmal, like really poor. The one thing I would say in that, and it's not defending that sort of defending from Austin Trusty, and in fact, I'm glad he was defending that way. The run from Connor Barron on his blind side really helps Youssef Chermiti give him the space. And again, I love that from a central midfielder. He knows he's not getting that ball, but what he does is he keeps his run into the box and he makes Austin Trusty make a decision. I've either got to go to the ball and then it's an easy slip in behind, or I stay where I am and I give Youssef Chermiti his space and time. And that's what he does. And thankfully, Chermiti finishes it so well. But yeah, I'm absolutely delighted for the boy because it can't have been an easy start for him. There's been high expectations coming here, and he's now got his big moment, and that will buy him a lot of time with the support now. Like the Rangers support will get behind Youssef Chermiti now because he's delivered in a game of that magnitude on that stage. It's a real statement win. So yeah, look, I think you can tell from my reaction here, Kyle, I'm delighted for him. I think it's been really, really difficult for him, but to go into that game and ultimately score the winner, that's what you want from your £8 million striker. That's what he's been bought for, to deliver in these big moments. That is exactly what he done at Parkhead on Saturday.
Yeah, that's it. It is just nice to see somebody, as you said, delivering in these big moments when it is expected of. And all he can do is push on from here. And it looks like Rangers, he might not quite be the lost cause that virtually everybody said. And we now have something as support and as fans that we can point to and go, look, this guy's done it in this type of game. He can do it for us again. Maybe just very briefly mention before we come on to the next wee bit here, and that is the defence. Dujon Sterling at right back. I just feel like this is the obligatory Dujon Sterling part of the podcast here, Ross. I thought, I don't want to say he did a number on Maeda yesterday, but that was certainly a huge, I think, contributed a lot to why we won. Was he was kept relatively quiet yesterday, which is in previous Old Firm scenes, firm games is something we've maybe not seen as much.
Yeah, I think that was everyone's concern all the time going into these fixtures with James Tavernier at right back. I think especially the way he's been playing lately is that Maeda on that left-hand side has given him a real difficult task. And you and I both predicted for our lineup that Sterling should play because of that. That's one of the main reasons, but also what he gives you just from a physicality aspect. I was really, really impressed with him again yesterday. I loved it that I can't remember what stage of the game it was, but when he takes Kieran Tierney for a run down that right hand side, I think it's late on in the game. It's brilliant because that's exactly what I want from a fullback at that stage of the game, where he's just willing to carry the ball forward, relieve a bit of pressure, hit it in behind their fullback and chase it, and he ends up winning Rangers a throw in deep in their half. But yeah, look, I think we all know how important Dujon Sterling is to this team. And actually, he's probably becoming one of those players now for Rangers that it doesn't really matter where you play him. You just have to have him in there. I think that's how important he's becoming. And what I think we spoke about this earlier on the podcast and another podcast, he's such an intelligent footballer. He always has that kind of knack of being in the right place at the right time. And I think you've seen that yesterday again. So we have to be honest about this and aware of it, that Diomande Maeda is one of Celtic's biggest threats in these games. He always is. And I think Dujon Sterling is a perfect match for him. I think he limited him. I know Maeda had those 2 chances, but he didn't really have a lot in the game. And I think that comes from Dujon Sterling. And look, I think he's going to get better because you got to remember, this is a Dujon Sterling that hasn't had a lot of football in the last 6, 7, 8 months. So I think you're going to get a much better player. when he starts to motor and he has a lot more minutes behind him. But I couldn't agree with you more. I'm happy for us to have the obligatory Dujon Sterling every moment in every single podcast. I think he's been brilliant, and I thought, again, I know we try and not comment on these things yesterday, but I thought his Instagram post after the game yesterday was absolutely hilarious. It was brilliant, and I think that's what you want. Look, Rangers haven't won anything, and this squad will be well aware of that. But enjoy these moments, right? Enjoy a big Old Firm victory, because there's no doubt about it. A lot of their players have enjoyed it over the last few years, and they've been quick to rub it in our face. I want players that go into these fixtures and really dislike the opposition. That's what I want. You know, Dujon Sterling has absolutely no time for anything to do with Celtic. That's what I want. I want players to come into this and give absolutely everything for Rangers. And I think that's what you get from him every single week.
Yeah, it was just really nice in a second half away from home against Celtic to actually see Rangers playing to their strengths and nullifying Celtic's strengths. It was a bit of a masterclass by Danny Röhl in that second half. But Ross, again, I love putting things in context, but Old Firms are never just 3 points. I want to talk about what does this mean for the title race, because I mean, we've talked about it before, the state we were in at the start of the season. I think we were 12, is it 9 or 12 points behind Celtic at one point? Totally adrift, not even a prospect of a title race. But as of this Monday, the way the league table reads is Hearts, Celtic and Rangers have all played 20 games. Hearts are on 44 points, Celtic are on 38 points, Rangers on 38 points, and Rangers and Celtic have the exact same goal difference. Momentum is huge in any season. We saw it, and even in the microcosm of that game yesterday, how much momentum can switch. But how good was it to actually go out there and win a game that means something? Does this firmly put, I mean, there's already a lot of pressure on Celtic. Does this just heap even more pressure back onto them? I mean, we saw the reaction after the game and the fallout from it, and there is already a bit of a meltdown. What does this do in terms of the context of the title race, Ross?
I mean, it puts Rangers well back in the mix. That's the first thing I would say. There's no doubt about it that Rangers are in a title race. Now, everyone can have their own opinion on whether Rangers are good enough to go and win this title, but they are in a title race. That's it. People can say the opposite to try and protect themselves from the worst thing happening and Rangers not going on and win the title. But that's the truth. Rangers have earned the right to be back in that conversation. So that's the first thing I would say. I think when you look at it in the context of Danny Röhl, and we referenced this earlier in the podcast, he needed a big win. He needed it, and he got it. So I think from the belief perspective within those players and within the support, that's there now. I think the pressure was on Celtic going into that game over the weekend. And a lot of people would maybe look at it and go, but Celtic are ahead in the league. Surely Rangers going there have to. But Rangers have been written off early this season. So for Rangers to get so close to Celtic and Hearts within 6 points, I don't think the pressure is with Rangers. I think as you get closer to Hearts and closer to the top of the league again, of course pressure is going to build on our side. Of course it is. But I think leading up to these games, I've just not felt that the pressure's been there for us because so many have written us off. And I think, again, that's credit to Danny Röhl, and he's maybe used that when he's talking to these players. You have a bit of freedom's the wrong term, but you know what I mean? You can go into these games and no one's really expecting you to do anything except your own support, of course. We expect to win every single game. But from the wider context of Scottish football, everyone's completely written us off. So I think going into these games, maybe the pressure hasn't been there as much. And I think you've seen that from Celtic in the second half yesterday. That was a team that collapsed under the pressure. When Rangers got that equaliser, you seen the shift in momentum in that game, and they just could not grab it back their way. So I think the wider context of this title race, and we said this at the beginning of the podcast, it's a statement. That is a statement now that Rangers are here and they're in this race. And the way I look at it is, and I like the way that Danny Röhl referenced it before the game, he said that Rangers are hunting, they're hunting Celtic and Hearts. well, there you go. Celtic were hunted at the weekend and Rangers are came away with 3 points. That's exactly the attitude I want from this Rangers squad. Go and hunt these teams, put them under pressure and see how they react to it. We've seen in recent weeks that Hearts have dropped off. I think they're 5th in the form table. Celtic have dropped off as well. It's 6 defeats in the first 8 for Wilfred Nancy. It's all there for Rangers to go and make something this season. So, yeah, you can probably tell maybe I'm getting a little bit carried away, but I think we've summarised it well. It's a statement. What I want now is for Rangers to go and deliver on the back of that, because these 2 games against Aberdeen coming up are going to be difficult games. We know the way that Aberdeen approach these games. They always treat it like a cup final. So I think Danny Röhl will be sitting with these players and going, that win at Parkhead will mean nothing if we don't go out and deliver in these next 2 games. And that's exactly the type of attitude I want from any Rangers manager. So yeah, it's there for us, Kyle, and we'll maybe reference it. This is why January is going to be so important. It is there for us. That league title is there to be won. Hearts are at the top of the league at the moment, and they deserve to be there. But that doesn't mean they'll be there in 18 games' time. And I think that's the way that this Rangers squad have got to look at it.
Yeah, it is. Every time we're on here, I just get blown away by some stat or something that's said, and just the fact that we are here, it's January, very early January, and we are, given the start to the season we had, we're on level points, level goal difference with Celtic. It's just absolutely bonkers to me, given how awful we were at the start of the season. But you kind of referenced it there a wee bit, Ross. It is important that, look, we're not daft. All football fans aren't daft. I'm not expecting this squad to sustain this from now into the rest of the season. And let's say it, we are in a title race. The board have to go out and back Röhl now to sustain this, Ross, don't they?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's maybe the tendency after a result like that at Parkhead to maybe sit and go, oh, maybe this squad isn't as bad as we think. There is a tendency to do so. But actually, I go the opposite way. For me, I think Danny Röhl is getting more out of these players than anyone ever expected. And I think Danny Röhl has now proved to everyone that he does have the calibre to deliver success here if you give him the right tools. I think that's what Rangers have to do in January. I think they have to recognise that there is a real opportunity here to go and lift a title. So give the manager what he needs to do that. Like, look at the recruitment in the summer. Sit and think we've probably got away with it, to be honest. Based on that start with Russell Martin to where we are now, we've probably got away with that recruitment in the summer. So let's do things better. Let's fix it. Let's work with this head coach and this manager. He clearly knows what he's doing. And let's bring in players that complement what he wants to do in the areas that he thinks he needs to strengthen. That is the way I would look at this. I don't think I would be looking at this in the opposite way of, oh, that's a great result of the weekend. We're only 6 points off the top. We don't actually need to do that much in January. No, for me, you've got to go now and back this manager. We spoke about it before we came in the podcast, Kel. This reminds me of 2 years ago under Philippe Clement, where I think we all went into that January and we felt there's a real opportunity for Rangers here if they go and sign a striker. I think at that point it was all about Lawrence Shankland. And again, I'm not going to go into Lawrence Shankland stuff. We do it on every single podcast. But it's more the point. It was more around, if you go and back this manager, we have a chance at lifting the title. And I think we all felt in that January Rangers didn't do enough. The recruitment wasn't good enough. Learn from your mistakes, right? Learn from the past. Go into this January transfer window, bring in 3 or 4 quality additions that can really help this team and go and lift a title. It's there. Go and deliver, back the manager, and let's see what he can do with the right tools.
That's it. He has to be backed, and like I've alluded to previously on Let's Talk Rangers, I think he will be by this board. I think their attitude, hearing things on the radio and seeing things in various social media and what's coming out in the news, it just seems to be, yep, we got it wrong, but let's go again. And we can only see it. I mean, we're sitting here, it's 4 or 5 days after the 1st of January, and I think we're all itching to get in some signings. And if there are any signings, don't worry, we will bring all the latest news and reaction to that as well. But Ross, just before we wrap up, Rangers are playing Aberdeen at Ibrox tomorrow night. I think Aberdeen are sitting 8th in the table. They've not had a good season this year. I think the form's shown that they've lost 4 out of their last 5 games, but how important is it that Rangers go out and win tomorrow night against Aberdeen? Because if they don't, they win against Celtic at Parkhead. It doesn't really mean much. So they have to go out and do it tomorrow night, Ross.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way you've got to look at it. You've got to go and back these type of results up. You've got to go into the next game. I actually think back to, I use Hearts as a bit of a reference here because they had that great result against us at Tynecastle, and then next week they were beaten 3-0 by Hibs, and it felt like that result against us didn't actually really matter. And I think you don't want to be in that position. When you're in this sort of position and you're looking to win a title, you've got to go and back up the big results. You've got to go and put results behind it. And I think that's the way I would look at it going into this game. I think Aberdeen have been in a bit of poor form lately. I think they picked up maybe a month ago, but they've dropped off again. I think they're sitting 8th. Lost to Falkirk over the weekend, which is a poor result. Aberdeen should be beating Falkirk. So look, we always know how Aberdeen approach these games. It's always like a cup final for them. So they're going to come to Ibrox and they're going to make it difficult. I think Jimmy Tilleen he's been going with a back 3 this season. So they're going to come, they're going to put as many bodies behind the ball as possible, and they'll try and grind out a result. For us, you've got to use that Old Firm result as a real positive marker and give you confidence in going into these games and going, we've got the quality now to beat all the teams in this league. Like, it's there. We've got it. So let's go, let's deliver, let's get another 3 points, and then go out to Pittodrie and do exactly the same thing. That's the way I'm looking at it. If you can come through these 3 games with 9 points, I think you look at the run of fixtures. I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. It was 8 games against Hibs, Hearts, Celtic, double against Aberdeen, Motherwell, St Mirren. Look, it looks like the Rangers could potentially, finish those 8 games with, is it 21 points? That would be a great return. And again, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Probably am. But Motherwell and St Mirren at Ibrox was not easy victories for us. Both teams made it difficult, and they got the 6 points. With them went to Parkhead, delivered another 3 points. Look at these 2 games against Aberdeen at Ibrox and then Pittodrie as an opportunity to go and get maximum points on a really tough run of fixtures that I think a lot of people in the wider context of Scottish football would be looking at and going, they've got no chance of getting through that run with any sort of chance at a title. Well, let's go and prove everyone wrong and get through this and deliver on our 6 points.
I know. I feel like you were 2 seconds away from saying 1 game at a time there, Ross.
No, I'm allowed as a supporter to look further ahead. As players, it's 1 game at a time, but as a supporter, we can look further ahead. That's allowed.
No, that's definitely that. But listen, I think that just about wraps it up for this episode of Let's Talk Rangers. A thoroughly enjoyable one this week, I've got to say, in particular, especially with that victory at the weekend. A big thank you to everyone who's joined us and all those catching up as well. As always, this show is built on you guys. It's built on being a Rangers community. So keep the conversation going in the comments. Let us know what you made of it. Let us know what you made of any of the points, anything you want to add, anything you would like to see from us on these podcasts. Give us a shout. Just make sure that if you have liked the discussion, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, switch on those notifications and pass it on to any other Rangers fans that you think would like this type of content as well. Just to remind you guys, we drop every Monday at 5, and you can also find us on all the audio platforms as well, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support as always. Take care, everybody. We'll see you all again soon.